Welcome everybody back to the Healthy Habit Podcast. We're talking with Mr. Richard Cividanes here for episode 235, and I'm your host of the podcast here. My name's Dr. Dayan of Healthy Habit Medical Center, and it's going to be an important episode because we're talking about allergies, seasonal allergies, the role immune system resilience plays a role in managing allergies. Since there's such a growing concern, a huge percentage of our patients and customers here at the store are constantly looking for seasonal allergy support, and I couldn't think of a better person to help guide us through this topic than Mr. Richard Cividanes here, representing Host Defense Mushrooms, National Science Educator at Host Defense for over 25 years involvement with the natural products industry. Richard's experience includes working as a staff member in health food stores and natural food co-ops in New York and Washington State. And today he's excited to share his love and admiration of the fungal kingdom here with us, with its unique abilities to support the health of the mind, body, spirit, and even the planet, which Richard has talked about with us in previous episodes, like in episode 208, which I highly recommend you guys go and check out, where we talked about a key mushroom for performance and longevity. So I'll let you guys go and check out that episode. And we highlighted something like CordyChi, the Breathe formula over at Host Defense, and much more. So Richard, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. It's always an honor to be here with you, Doctor.
Well, let's dive right into it then. For sake of time here, about 25, 26 minutes, Richard and I will be here together breaking down everything I introduced there with the immune system, allergies, and much more. We're going to try to tie them together. First of all, though, could you introduce yourself and kind of what you do as the National Science Educator there at Host Defense?
Certainly, and thanks so much for the opportunity. So, Fungi Perfecti, which is the parent company that produces the Host Defense mushroom brand, is owned and operated by the mycologist Paul Stamets. Paul is deeply interested in, deepening science research understanding about fungal organisms and the way that they can support both human and planetary health. He has a very active research laboratory that is part of our facilities where he employs a host of PhD research docs and other laboratory scientists. And then he also operates and helps to support an education team that has 4 educators on the team who are, regularly going out to medical conferences, natural products industry conferences and expos, and doing visits into regional areas where we host dinner trainings or lunch trainings where retail staff and medical professionals will come to learn about beneficial mushrooms and how they can support our health and our wellness. And so that's part of my role, is to help support and kind of spread knowledge and information about the organisms that we work so closely with at Host Defense, and helping to expose more and more people to the opportunities that the fungal kingdom can provide to us, and again, not only as us as people, but also our planet and our environment that we live within as well.
Yeah, you're basically on the front lines there, educating us, keeping us informed with what's going on at the company, and teaching the public about the value of mushrooms, why we need it for our health, correct?
Yeah, and we're seeing this work taking root. There's more and more interest in mushrooms happening across all demographics in our country right now, and that is really exciting to us here at Host Defense for certain.
Amazing. That's why we love Host Defense is a great partner of ours, and why customers keep coming back and getting Host Defense products. So why are seasonal allergies such a growing concern today, Richard? What role does immune resilience play in managing them? It's really popular here in Arizona. Tell us a little bit about this, your thoughts on seasonal allergies. I'm sure it's come up in different dinner trainings, in different conferences you've been to.
It most certainly has, and it does seem that more and more people are impacted by some kind of an allergic response throughout the year. Allergies, I think, do have to do with the rising sensitivities that our immune system and other organ systems like our digestive tract are experiencing. And then this is, the immune system kind of over responding to things that should technically be neutral in our environment. And so, there are most certainly ways naturally and with fungal organisms like mushrooms, that you can support the resilience of your immune system and your digestive system, helping that crosstalk that can occur between these organ systems that plays a vital role in helping to establish a more efficient and effective immune response within the body. And then utilizing specific mushroom organisms that could help to modulate and move the immune system through its stages, and working towards that eventual return to watchful waiting. This is one of the places that fungal organisms like the beneficial mushrooms really shine, is in their capacity to support immune modulation. So we all have the different stages that our immune response has to go through once it's been engaged and turned on. Those engagement and recruitment processes of the immune response are deeply inflammatory in their nature, and it's an important aspect of the immune response. We can't have a functioning immune system without temporary inflammatory processes occurring, as you know. And so the first couple of stages of the immune response are deeply inflammatory in their processes. And the immune modulation is helping to move the immune system through the stages, eventually moving into what's known as the clearance and pacification stages, where it starts to downregulate some of those inflammatory processes and come back to what we like to call watchful waiting, where the immune cells are no longer in a responsive, reactive way, but they are in an observational space where they are again searching and seeking out non-self molecules. And so a lot of beneficial mushroom species can significantly support these immune modulatory processes that are going to help to bring the immune system through its stages and ultimately resolve that activity and come back to watchful waiting. I'm thinking about mushrooms like reishi. It's a beautiful immune modulating species that has a wonderful capacity to kind of quiet and calm some of those upregulated immune processes that are occurring, that can most certainly be occurring when a person is experiencing allergic reactivity or some kind of other interaction where the immune system is responding and reacting to things that, again, technically should be neutral in the environment.
That's why we have Richard on here, folks. I knew you'd have some thoughts on what's going on here during allergies. Thank you for that breakdown, my friend. So where can mushrooms fit in? You mentioned reishi. And do you actually have a particular allergy formula at Host Defense, or one that you suggest people start off with, or a certain blend of mushrooms? Like in the previous episode in 208, we highlighted CordyChi, which is a blend of the reishi and cordyceps, which is a good idea for athletic performance, people going to the gym, going on runs, etc. Is there anything like that, but for allergies through Host Defense?
We don't have an allergy specific formula, but the two that I would make mention of would be our CordyChi formula. That's the 50-50 blend of cordyceps and reishi, or our Breathe formula,
Okay.
which is three mushrooms in equal parts. It's cordyceps, reishi, and chaga. And the reason I would mention those, they are, cordyceps and reishi, these are mushroom species that check off a lot of different structure function processes in the body. So they're great species to consider for athletic performance, for post-athletic recovery processes. They really can play vital roles there. Those two mushroom species, cordyceps and reishi, also play a host of other roles in the body and in different organ systems. So for one, they are both have been found to be proliferators of probiotic bacteria in our digestive systems. And I'm more and more in the belief that if we can have a healthily functioning digestive system, so that we're absorbing and able to assimilate nutrients into our body efficiently and effectively, that we have a diverse group of bacterial species living within us that are helping to support the production of a whole range of metabolites and other compounds that are being found to support our health. Again, I find that it's a foundational aspect to our immune system's functioning, and that also plays a role in potentially like in supporting a person with allergies. So, getting the gut right is a great place to start. Cordyceps and reishi both play roles in proliferating bacteria. Reishi plays a role in supporting the barrier cells of our intestinal tract. And then it goes even further than that. So reishi and cordyceps also play really big roles in our respiratory system. And this is a place that can be most certainly negatively impacted if a person is experiencing allergies. So those two mushrooms can help to support more graceful breathing, right? And that reishi, cordyceps, we bring in the chaga. Those three mushrooms can significantly support respiratory functioning, and the epithelial cell layer, again, the barrier layer of the lungs themselves. And then reishi and
Interesting.
cordyceps also have some published research data that shows that they help to support a downregulation of certain types of immune cells known as granulocyte cells. And these are the types of cells that get activated when we are interacting with an allergic antigen. When something is creating an allergic response, granulocyte cells become activated, and they have an ability to release incredibly inflammatory compounds like histamine and prostaglandins that can be really, uncomfortable for people to experience. There is some research on reishi and cordyceps that shows that they support a calming of granulocyte activations like that. So they can be very supportive mushrooms for people to utilize. My thought process is always, start utilizing them 4 to 6 weeks prior to when it's the
Uh-huh.
time of the year where you might be impacted, so that you're in a space of regularly using them for a period of time before you start getting the trigger that's going to potentially cause you to have that allergic immune reaction that can occur. And so that CordyChi formula is a beautiful 50-50 blend. Again, if we take it to the Breathe formula, you're getting three really powerful mushrooms that can help to support those immune modulatory aspects of the immune system. That can be really helpful in creating more balance for a person when we're in those places where they're being impacted by something in their environment.
Incredible. And I'll pull up CordyChi and Breathe here. We did differentiate between those two in 208, which was good. And like you said, yes, typically used in athletic performance, endurance, breathing, increasing your oxygenation ability, your just uptake of oxygen, but also that can potentially help. Potentially, we're not giving any medical advice with allergies, seasonal allergies, because, like you said, it's acting directly on the granulocytes, which can then help reduce symptoms like sneezing, congestion, fatigue, that sinus pressure, headaches as well, sinus headaches potentially as well. Well, what did you say? What mushroom was that was studied that looked at granulocytes specifically?
It was both reishi and
And
cordyceps.
and
Both
cordyceps.
have some research that shows they help with
Interesting.
the granulocyte cell, the mast cell specifically, is I believe what the research has shown, that they help to support a downregulation of their ability to granulate, which is when they're releasing those highly inflammatory compounds, which normally they'd be releasing in response to parasites. Like, that's the reason why those types of granulocyte cells are really there. But
Right.
for some reason, during our evolution, those immune cells all of a sudden in human history started also responding to these technically neutral antigens, right? Like pollens. Like, not everybody is allergic to pollen
Uh-huh.
because it's technically not an antigen, but now we have definitely close to a 20% of people in our population who experience regular seasonal allergic reactivity. So you're talking about many, many, many millions of people
Right.
who experience this on a regular basis. And that cordyceps there, those two mushrooms, they are both well-known adaptogenic mushrooms. We find that in a lot of the studies done with humans, we see the longer the mushrooms are used, the more beneficial the impact is seen. And this kind of
Okay.
plays into that whole idea of adaptogens and the way that they help to support multiple organ systems simultaneously to bring more resilience and balance in the organ functioning. And so we see, at 6 weeks of use, we get good results. At 12 weeks of use, it's getting better. At 24 weeks of use, it's even better than it was at 12. It tends to
Uh-huh.
build over time. So these are great species to consider using on a regular, ongoing basis to support, not only athletic performance and recovery, but again, many different organ systems simultaneously. They're two of the really powerful, beneficial mushroom species that are available to us today.
Right. And as you mentioned, can you hear me, Richard?
Yes.
And as you mentioned a few moments ago, like this is a stress response. It's an inflammatory response when someone has seasonal allergies or a major allergic reaction throughout the year or even after foods, but definitely environmental. That's when inflammation gets out of control, right? So some of these mushrooms can help modulate that inflammation, get that granulocyte response under control potentially, and then hopefully over time it leads to a more smooth allergy season. And it is available as a powder as well. CordyChi comes in capsules and a powder, and we have these at Healthy Habit. If we're out of anything, we can special order a fresh bottle for you. We ship anywhere nationwide. And again, that's CordyChi, like cordyceps, and reishi mushroom, both together. Do you have a preference, capsule or powder in this case, if someone's going to start potentially applying this for their allergies?
Yeah, you know what? In my personal preference, I like the powders and liquid extracts. The powder I really like because it's easy to take. A teaspoon of the powder is 3 grams, so that's
Uh-huh.
a gram and a half of each mushroom. And it's so easy to mix into. Like I usually mix mine into my morning water that I drink.
Yeah.
You can blend it into any kind of beverage, hot or cold. You can put it into food that is hot. You can mix it into things like oatmeal or rice. You can blend it into your pancake batter or your scrambled eggs, mix it up and cook it. It
Yeah.
doesn't have a strong flavor, so it's not going to alter the flavor of your food. But I find that it's much easier to get a higher serving without having to take more capsules. And economically, it is the best deal, right? You get a 66 1.5 gram servings of powder, which is right around the same price as 31 gram servings of the capsules. So the economy of the powders is like you're getting almost 3 times the amount of material for the same
Wow.
price. And again, I really like the ease of the increase of the serving size simply. Half a teaspoon is 1.5 grams, 1 teaspoon is 3 grams. And that to me just it's simple, it's easy, does not taste bad, so you can mix it into things like water and
Yeah.
just drink it down, and it is not going to leave you with a bad aftertaste, a bad aftertaste.
Right. You can see here if you take two capsules, which gives you 15 servings, you're getting basically 500 milligrams each of the mushroom, versus the half teaspoon gives you 750 milligrams of each of the mushroom in there, the cordyceps and the reishi. So good. Thank you for
Exactly.
that. That matters. That adds up over time, right? So
It really does.
yeah.
And and if a person is interested in using more supportive servings of like 3 to 4.5 grams, the powder is most certainly the way to go because again, to take 3 grams of capsules every day, then you're taking 6 capsules each day. That's going to add up pretty quickly. Whereas again, that powder, you're going to get a more than a month's serving of 3 grams a day if you're doing the powder, right?
Got
At
it.
that serving size. So it's really a great way to consider using it, especially if you're wanting to do it for a longer term periods. And again, mushrooms like cordyceps and reishi, in my humble opinion, they are organisms that can be utilized regularly, and the more regular use of them, you tend to see better outcomes with the use over as time goes on with the use of them.
Got it. Thank you for that, Richard. And you can see
Yeah.
here on the bottom of the CordyChi bottle supports stress and fatigue reduction as well. So this might be a good starting point in general for someone that's new to the mushroom world, mushroom supplementation world, not just for allergies. We did talk today specifically as a topic highlight seasonal allergies, but this, I'm sure Richard would agree, is a good starting point for anybody potentially getting into mushrooms, right?
Absolutely. They're wonderful species to consider. Most people can utilize them safely, even when you're on prescription medications. It's always a good idea if you're on a medication, check with your pharmacist to see if there's any contraindications. But these two species have very, very few drug mushroom interactions, so
Okay.
most people can use them safely. And again, I find like I've been using these two mushroom species for, close to 25, 26 years of my experience, and I want to keep taking them.
Amazing. That's how he brings the energy, folks. That's how he's able to
That's
stay
that,
enthusiastic and Keep us
That's right.
educated here on the mushrooms. And here's the Breathe capsules, which also comes as an
Yes.
extract liquid tincture option and a powder as well on the Breathe capsules. CordyChi is capsules and powder. So those are some options, folks. Take some notes. Healthy respiratory support here on the Breathe formula, as Richard went over, which has also cordyceps and reishi, just like CordyChi, but with the chaga added in there. Equal parts of all three of those. So just really depends on what you're looking for. We even have all three of these as standalones, right, Richard? As their own capsule or liquid tincture extract, where it's just chaga or just cordyceps or just reishi. So we have everything you need here through Host Defense and Healthy Habit Health Food. So just make sure to come on by and talk to one of our staff. Tell them you're dealing with allergies and you're looking for the CordyChi or the Breathe formula. One thing I wanted to ask you, we have about 5-6 minutes to go here, but beta-glucans, anything that's doing here, how can that be playing a role potentially in the mushroom world for influencing inflammation and those histamine-related reactions you mentioned, like with the granulocytes? I don't remember that you mentioned the words today, specifically beta-glucans, but help me out here.
Sure. So beta glucans it is one compound class that we find in fungal organisms. They are part of all fungal cell walls. And beta glucans are polysaccharides, complex sugars. They kind of, you could think of them, imagine them as being like scaffolding units that have other molecules built into the scaffolding units. There can be other proteins, other short chain, other acids, and other molecules that are built into the beta glucan scaffolding. It's a broad range of compounds. Like there are some beta glucans that are active and they will interact with our immune cells and engage our immune cells into action. And then there are many beta glucans that function purely as dietary fibers. They don't have activity for the immune cells, but they're still playing an important role as a dietary fiber in the digestive
Got it.
tract. We find beta glucans across mushroom mycelium and mushroom fruit bodies. In many species, they're slightly more concentrated in fruit bodies. What we're seeing in the standardization processes in the dietary supplement industry with mushrooms, the standardizing the beta glucans is a little concerning because, again, the testing that is used for beta glucan content is not specific. So it's not telling us what kind of beta glucans are actually present, active
Right.
versus inactive. And it's also a test that's not an approved laboratory technique for fungal organisms. One of the overseeing international science bodies, the AOAC, that validates laboratory research techniques, has never approved the test for beta glucans with fungal organisms because they tend to overwhelm the test. So we're
Oh,
seeing this push to standardizing one compound class in these mushroom organisms using a test that's not specific. It's not giving us the information that we really want to know. And that's a little concerning to us, especially because even though beta glucans have great science behind them, we're still learning a lot about them. We're even learning a lot, in fungal research. There's even some research that's showing that it's not the beta glucan aspect of these scaffolding units that's doing the heavy lifting, if you will, in the immune system, but it's other molecules that are embedded within the scaffolding that may actually be creating the immune engagement. So there's a lot more to learn. And as we know with science, it's constantly evolving. And we're just, as discoveries come along, it helps to open up new avenues of discovery and understanding. I
correct.
like to look at the full mushroom complex because we have not only beta glucan compounds, but then a whole range of other compound classes, lipids, sterols, polysaccharides, terpenes. And within these compound classes, there are hundreds and hundreds of compounds that have been found to be supportive of the human organ systems and immune system. So the idea of standardizing down to one compound class that's still not completely understood, using lab techniques that are not approved and we're not able to be specific is, in our opinion at Host Defense, kind of going in the wrong direction as opposed to doing human clinical studies on full spectrum mushroom
Right.
material and seeing what the impacts for immune activity and other organ system processes may be. Beta glucans, really potentially positive, but I feel like we still have a lot more to learn about them before we start rushing to standardizing things to them as a class. We've gotten into some trouble in the herbal world standardizing herbs like echinacea and ginger to certain classes of compounds. And then years later, science discovered, oh, wait, this isn't actually the way it's working.
Uh,
And so, I think we need to let more of the research come out before we can make any, standardizing impact statements that would be really, really is helpful and supportive for people. I think it creates a lot more
wow.
confusion.
Great
Yeah.
answer to my question of beta-glucans, where they're fitting in this picture. Thank you for that breakdown, Richard. And
Of
we'll
course.
we'll cap it off right here. Where can people go to learn more about Host Defense work? I mean, I'm sure hostdefense.com is a good starting point. What resources do you recommend besides Host Defense? For those that are interested in the science, maybe they want to go deeper behind functional mushrooms.
Sure, that's a great question. So, yeah, hostdefense.com. There's a lot of information you can find there and educational info. There's a mycologist from the United Kingdom who I really like to follow. His name is Merlin Sheldrake. You can find him on YouTube and on podcasts. He wrote a beautiful book a number of years ago, maybe 2019, 2020. It's called The Entangled Life. It is a wonderful read for people to really get this the inspired look at what mushrooms and mycelium are doing in nature, in our environments, how they interact with other species that they live and support in their environments. That's a great resource book for people who are interested in mushrooms. Obviously, Paul Stamets, the owner of Host Defense, he wrote a book many years ago called Mycelium Running. That's
Uh-huh.
another wonderful introductory book into how these organisms support the health of the ecosystems that they live within, how they can play roles again in that planetary health as well as the health of the human beings and other species on the planet. And there's another great book that I enjoy looking into at times. It's called The Fungal Pharmacy. And that is a book that gives you insight into a whole range of different species and a bunch of the published research on each of the species, some of their classical, more historical indigenous uses for the organisms as well, and tying that together with the modern day research to give you a beautiful snapshot of many different species and the understandings we have of them right now.
Noted. And I noted Merlin Sheldrake as well. That's a really cool name.
Great
So
name, great, wonderful family that
yeah,
he's from, and he's a really inspiring speaker. When you hear him, he brings the fungal kingdom to life for sure.
Richard, always appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks for coming on for episode
Thank you.
235.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I hope you have a great rest of the day.